Mm. So I may or may not get shot to death like Bambi's mom for this review, but it is my brutal honesty. So please keep that in mind before you destroy me in the comments section. And I understand this opinion's controversial, not everyone's going to agree with it, but keep in mind, this is not a negative review. It is just a critical one. Okay? Just want to make that clear before you try to jump down my throat. If you are one of the people that thinks that this is like one of the greatest Disney achievements of all time, I can understand you. If you think this movie is dull, boring, slow, and tedious, I can understand you. I can understand both sides on this one. It's one of those movies that has a very differing opinion. Some really love it, some really don't. I'm kind of in the middle. I think it's a pretty good movie, but it has a lot of problems, and everything we've reviewed in this second Disney marathon so far, this is the weakest one. So, without further ado or delay, I'm gonna try to put my nerves in my back pocket so I can actually do this review without being terrified of what Disney fans will do to me. So, let's talk about it. What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my station, which is for animation, including TV and movies as well. I'm your host, Jackson Small. Welcome back to DisneyVember 2. Let's talk about Bambi. One of the most beloved, well-known, and iconic Disney movies ever made. For a couple different reasons. But would it shock you for me to say that this is one of those Disney movies that I have rewatched the least? It's not because it's a bad movie, it's just because I have to be in like a very specific mindset to watch it. It's a little hard to explain, but it's like I have to be in like a certain mindset or a certain mood in order to sit down and watch this. It's not one of those Disney movies I can just pop in anytime and have a great time with, like I did with Snow White or Pinocchio or Dumbo or what was that other one? Or Fantasia. Definitely not Fantasia. It's a movie that's very situational. And if I'm not in that mood or in that state, if I'm not in that mood, then I'm just not going to watch it. I'm going to literally watch or do anything else. And it sounds like I'm being very harsh on this movie, but it's just to emphasize the fact that this movie is very good, but it is not great. So, here's my written review. I hope you enjoy. Please don't be mean in the comments section, okay? I will respect your opinion if you can respect my opinion. We all have different tastes. It just is how it is as we are as humans. Here's my review. I hope you enjoy. Please don't shoot me. Another one that's difficult to review, and another one of the most highly acclaimed in Disney's history. And I'll give it my best shot anyway. But this may be a bit of a hot take. The animation's gorgeous and really invests the viewer in its forest setting beautifully. The characters are fantastic, especially Bambi himself, who has a great character arc throughout, though it is a familiar one, and we'll get to that later. The music is excellent and adds a lot to each moment, especially when it gets dark out of nowhere. The atmosphere is both mellow and calming, but also, in some moments, downright terrifying and intense. I'm not going to say anything more than that, because I still want to keep spoilers out of these reviews for people that haven't watched these movies yet. And yes, those people do exist. So don't say, oh, but this movie is so old. Guys, it depends on generation. There are generations that have yet to watch this movie. So, for that, I keep spoilers out of it. The infamous death scene that I'm not going to talk about because it is so infamous is still heartbreaking and shocking. The voice acting is very good. The pacing is a good slow burn, and the runtime is overall solid. But, in my opinion, this one does have a lot of problems. The story is a way too overdone coming-of-age story, but to be fair, it was Disney's first, so I'm willing to give it a little bit of leeway on that front, but it is a very familiar story and a familiar plot template, so if you've seen these coming-of-age movies before from 1,000 other different companies or animation people, it's not going to be unfamiliar to you, and at times it can also be a little bit stale. The sudden tone shift is so abrupt and feels out of nowhere. Like, from that infamous scene onward, it suddenly becomes dark and intense out of literally nowhere. The side characters, while memorable, lack distinct personality. Like, I remember Thumper, I remember Owl, I remember the skunk, but I forget its name. But they kind of lack a distinct and memorable personality that makes me, think of them as like one of the greatest Disney characters of all time or anything like that. And unfortunately, as much as I like Bambi as a character, this does fall into that category because since this is a coming of age story, he is very much a blank slate. He is supposed to be just the usual everyday deer. So because of that, he doesn't really have much of a personality of his own. More so, he just grows and develops one as he gets older. Even though most of this movie is spent with little Bambi rather than adult Bambi. That's not till the end. The ending is inconclusive and not very satisfying. I understand that a lot of this movie's stuff is left vague, and I can kind of understand why, but at the same time, it does frustrate me a little because it's like, well, I want to see what happens at the end. Like, does Bambi get a happy ending? Does Bambi, get like his own like tribe of deer? Does he get to spend more time with his dad? Like, show me more of that. But unfortunately, no. It kind of just ends on a weird shot of Bambi as a full-grown adult looking out onto the pasture, and that's it. I know I said I keep spoilers out of this review, but I feel like I should preference that so people know. This movie's ending is inconclusive. It's not your typical happy ending that you see in most of these kind of movies, and it is not very satisfying. Just be aware of that. The dad is there for one scene that completely disappears. Nothing more to say. He's just there for one scene, then he's gone. We don't learn nothing about his character or his personality or nothing. He delivers one great moment of dialogue, and then he just disappears. Okay. Some of the lighthearted moments are way too sappy, even by 40 standards, and this is something that people nowadays do have problems with because, look, I don't mind sappy cuteness, it's just that there is a limit to it, and when you go past that limit, that's when you overstay your welcome. And this one does that a couple times. Like, the first few beginning moments I can forgive because it's Bambi's introduction, it's Bambi first trying to learn how to walk with his wobbly legs and meet friends and stuff like that. That stuff is fine. It's the middle section up to that infamous scene where it gets way too sappy. At least for me. I know, again, it varies from person to person. And unfortunately, in my opinion, its most damning problem, it lacks rewatchability significantly in comparison to the rest of Disney's filmography. You have to be in a certain mood or mindset in order to watch this movie again, and if you're not, then you're not. Then it's kind of just going to sit on your shelf, and you're not going to watch it again, and you're just going to watch literally anything else. Overall, though, it is a classic movie if you do look past its faults. Much like if you look past all the faults of the original Metal Gear on NES, it's still a classic in gaming. This is still a classic in film and animation, but it does have faults. And I do overall enjoy it as a film. Like I said, this review is still very positive. But from what I've reviewed so far in this second Disney Marathon, it is definitely the weakest one. I understand that it's a pretty unpopular opinion, and I respect yours regardless as long as you can respect mine. But this is one that kind of falls into the category of overrated. It's a pretty good movie, but at best, in my opinion, it's a one and done. I mean, am I glad to have this VHS tape to watch it whenever I am in that specific mood and mindset? Yes, absolutely. But, again, it has to be a very specific mood and mindset, and most of the time it just sits down there on the shelf gathering dust, because I rewatched this the least out of most Disney movies, even the bad ones, and it's, again, not because the movie itself is bad, but because it's like, after one or two watches, I feel satisfied. I feel like I got everything I needed to get. So, that is sad because this is definitely a classic in animation, and it is a very good movie. But it does have its problems and its faults, and I just can't look past them the older I get. Not to mention, the tone shift is very abrupt, and it is a bit too brutally realistic. At least in my personal opinion. I know that a lot of people adore this movie, and if you do, continue to adore it. It's just another one of those that I do enjoy, but it's overall just not for me. And because of that, my final verdict for Bambi is going to be a solid 7 out of 10. It is a pretty good movie. I do recommend watching it if you haven't seen it yet, but twice at most. It's not very rewatchable, unfortunately. But it's still a pretty good movie. I do recommend it. I do give it a thumbs up. This is not a negative review. But of everything we have reviewed so far for this second Disney Marathon, going back through Disney's earlier history, this is the weakest one. I hate to say it, but it's just the truth. So, there we go. That's my review of Bambi. And now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and end this review now before I end up getting shot off screen in the most dramatic way possible. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this almost every single day. Stay tuned because we still have a lot more Disney movies to go in this marathon. And next up is... what is next after this? Well, let's see. We're skipping Solo dos Amigos. We're skipping Three Calaberos. We're skipping Make Mine Music. We're skipping Fun and Fancy Free. We're skipping Melody Time. Oh, yes. We gotta talk about this one next. Okay. I'll see you guys next time for 1949's The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, a.k.a. the one with Sleepy Hollow.
Listen, I will soon forget. So listen and you won't regret. Be true to yourself, don't miss your chance. And you won't end up like the fool who ripped his pants.